This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, and these are your headlines. Monkeypox and bird flu make a very unwelcome return. Children are still being forced into marriages, and why going on an amazing adventure may well soon get a whole load easier. But firstly, our headline story, and both monkeypox and bird flu have reared their ugly heads yet again. The Ministry of Health announced yet more cases of monkeypox were detected in patients this week. There has now been 11 cases of monkeypox within Cambodia. The most recent victim lives in Phnom Penh and is now in hospital receiving treatment. Infections in the kingdom are on the rise, and it's not just here, as the disease is also spreading across the globe. And that is borne out by the latest numbers from the WHO. And what they show is there has been 93,000 cases of the disease. But the good news is the mortality rate is very low. Of the 93,000 cases, there were only 176 deaths. Now that low mortality rate is so very different from bird flu, which has also returned to the kingdom. Now believe me, bird flu is a truly frightening disease. The most recent victim was a 16-year-old boy, and so far there have been 64 cases of H5N1. And of those, an incredible 41 people have died. Now let's get some perspective here. You remember a moment ago I said that 93,000 had contracted monkeypox and only 176 people have died. Well, that is a mortality rate of 0.18%, not even 0.25%. But with bird flu, it's a whole different story, and that story is out and out scary, as the death-to-infection ratio is simply staggering. Nearly 65% of people who contract the disease will die. Now, that death rate is so bad it is even higher than the Black Death, which in comparison had a death toll of only 47%. And let's play death compare some more. Tuberculosis is only 14%. Malaria has 3% death rate, and big frightening AIDS is just 17%. So you are 3 times more likely to die when contracting bird flu, even when compared to AIDS. The death rate of this disease is apocalyptic, and to know that it is even more deadly than the legendary Black Death explains why over 140 million birds globally have now been culled to try and stop this deadly disease. This is scary stuff, people, for if this disease mutates and finds a more efficient way to make us its hosts, that COVID thing that we all lived through is just a simpering soft puppy that's rather cute, when compared to the dark spectre of death that is bird flu. For if you get bird flu, the chances are you will probably die. And by the way, I'm not trying to scare you. The fact is, it is just that frightening. On this week's Crime Desk, the sad story of forced marriages, how ignorance of HIV/AIDS is infecting the young, and 2 high-ranking officials run a police checkpoint and now could get life in prison. Forced marriages are a truly horrific thing, and this crime of forcing often young girls to marry older men for financial gain still goes on. But the good news here within the kingdom is there has been a slight drop in these numbers. A national survey has found a reduction in both child marriages and forced marriages in the 9 provinces that they surveyed. And those provinces included Battambang, Kampot and Siem Reap. Now here is the bit of this story that absolutely amazed me. According to Cambodia Demographic Survey, 1 in 5 girls in Cambodia are married before the age of 18. That's 20% getting married at 17 or below, and nearly 2% are married before the age of 15. Now, I don't know about you, but at the age of 15, I had a Star Wars figure jammed permanently up my nose, and I feasted on a diet of sugar and cartoons. I was not, and I mean absolutely not, prepared to take on the rigours of married life. In fact, now I think about it, I was not even responsible enough to be allowed to put a hat on by myself. So forcing a child into married life at such a young age is quite simply cruel. And even in later life, it does not get any better for some. As a spokesman has said, although there is a slight reduction in child marriages, gender-based violence still persists, with 1 in 10 Cambodian women experiencing serious physical abuse from their husbands. So it's not just the marriage that is so very bleak for some, but also the future for these unwitting brides. It is always good to have the armed forces, in this case the military and the police, in close cooperation. Well, that's what you would think, but on this occasion, not so much so, as a senior police officer and a former soldier have been detained by police in Phnom Penh and now face charges for smuggling methamphetamines. They were smuggling it from the Cambodian-Lao border in Stung Treng province, and they were taking it to the capital city itself, dear old Phnom Penh. These two had some serious ranks. One was in fact an army lieutenant colonel and the other a deputy chief of the provincial traffic police. They were caught when a crackdown on drink drivers was in force, and at approximately 1:30 in the morning, the two suspects attempted to drive through a police roadblock at high speed, a tactic that I am sure would not raise any suspicion whatsoever. And to the surprise of absolutely nobody, the police decided to give chase. We do need to pause right here for irony, as do remember a senior traffic cop is now being chased by other traffic cops as he did not stop at a traffic stop. When the pair were stopped, a search ensued and they were found to be in possession of 5 kilos of methamphetamine and a loaded pistol as well as other assorted bags of drugs. And if they are convicted, this bungling pair of once high-ranking officials will face up to life in prison. There is a crime so very common, you will encounter it on a daily basis. I certainly know that I do, and you will be a victim of it in some way, and that is the crime of ignorance. It seems that, incredibly, people are still not heeding the warnings to take HIV/AIDS seriously. And recent statistics quote that 4 people in Cambodia become infected with HIV every single day. And if we scale that up, that is 1,400 people becoming HIV positive every single year. And the National AIDS Authority has said that, incredibly, 42% of the newly infected people are aged between 15 and 24, which to me is a little surprising, as there must be an awful lot more promiscuous sex going on within that age range than I ever could have guessed. Now, the reason I say that is it is commonly known, and I have reported on it on this show, that those in the sex industry say it is exceedingly uncommon that their clients will wear condoms. So with such high risks for sex workers not operating safe sex, you would think it would be the older age bracket that would be the ones that would see a surge in AIDS infections. But that is not the case. It is the reckless ways of the young that is putting them in very serious danger. And of course, the only cure for that, of course, is to educate and to give them better sex education classes. Now, there is a chance you know myself only as that guy who reads the news so awfully well. But there is a chance you may be privy to the fact that I am also Mr. B, the temple hunter. I travel about 25,000 kilometers every year on my motorcycle hunting ancient temples that most people know absolutely nothing about. Now, the reason I tell you this is because a news story has been simmering away in the background for months, and it is one that may well encourage you yourself to get up off your perfectly proportioned posterior and have an adventure all of your own. You see, there's an exciting new initiative underway, and that is, if you have a visa for Cambodia, you can travel to Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, and Malaysia on your Cambodian visa without any further bureaucracy. Simply put, a visa issued in any one of those 5 countries would be valid for all of them. That really is big news. I cross borders all the time in my never-ending hunt for temples, and to me, the utter lunacy of it taking half an hour to process mine and my motorcycle's paperwork makes absolutely no sense. Now, do note, I said process paperwork, not queue up. That is just the paperwork alone. And when it's all done, I walk away with a big reef of paper I have had to triple sign. I then stuff that in a bag, and a few days later I return the stack of paper to the board guards so they can send it off to some obscure warehouse far, far away. Now, I may be as thick as a badger dipped in cement, but it just makes no sense to me, as the whole process is so labour-intensive, and it does have the habit of discouraging some from crossing borders. But now, with this proposed plan, once you've got a visa, you may ramble at will to any of those countries in Asia, and that is a fantastic idea. If this idea is implemented, I guarantee I will be the first to let you know. It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week.
And here we are at the weather. As always, I battle to get it up on the screen, and we pause. There we go. Now then, you may have noticed something this week. I did mention there was banging in the background. Finally, the builders have stopped because they have completed building my sauna. And at the end of this, I'll put up a picture for you so you see how fantastic it is. And if you wonder how it is I have such a fantastic personal sauna and gym, it's because I don't have kids and I am not married. Believe me, that's the best decision I ever made. Now then, to the weather. We have humidity heading up towards the 70s, and you can feel it. It's getting rather uncomfortable. Temperatures 29 to 34, but that's increasing. That's going up to 35 degrees. So there's something to be learnt here, is as it's getting hotter like this, don't you forget to drink more water, a bit like me in my personal sauna, because you will get more dehydrated, and I guarantee it will lead to headaches. So just a friendly note there, keep the liquids going in.
This has been the Khmer Times News. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next weekend for your weekly roundup.